This is the Collective Voice, and you're tuning in to Faith Transitions, conversations with young adults as they faithfully navigate the wide and varied transitions of young adulthood. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Faith Transitions. We have been on a break for a little while, and we are back, and I'm excited that we are back recording the podcast again here at 787, the Collective Voice. So we're excited to be back on Faith Transitions specifically because we get to invite Ashley Cuellar to be a part of our conversation here today. Many of you who have been around the 787 for a long time will know Ashley because she predates me at the 787 Collective, and so that's fun. When I started working at Austin Seminary, she was actually doing work with the 787 Collective, having been an alum from the seminary there. That's where you got your MDiv, right?
Yes.
Right, Ashley? Yeah. And then stayed around and worked with us on staff for a while on doing work through the 787, and then took a role at a local congregation as a licensed local pastor in the United Methodist Church. And once you took on that role as I know we joked about this, part-time minister, right? Like there's no such thing as a part-time minister. So you realized that you needed to just take a step away from 787 and really focus your attention at the church. But I'm glad that you did, because once you did that, it led to this idea of us. I think we were sitting at the where do we have this conversation? Was it at the Crown and Anchor? I feel like that's where all of our good conversations take place. Is at the pub there. And this idea of you doing a campaign emerged. Of really, you shared this beautiful vision with me of really wanting to wed the old with the new. And you said, I came into this congregation. The demographics around the church has changed a lot, and the congregation itself has not changed a lot. And so I really want to figure out how to be in better community with the neighborhood, like really our actual neighbors that live around the church. And so you developed this concept that you called Seekers, which I harassed you about a little bit because that was like a really big thing, like back in the late 90s and early aughts. But just goes to show that, there's nothing new under the sun, as we read in the Bible, right? But also that it all just comes back around. So, anyway, it's been really fun to just track your journey for the last couple of years. And I know there's been some really incredible highs and some really deep lows too. And so we do Faith Transitions, this specific part of the podcast, recognizing that the journey of young adulthood is one of transitions constantly. And you are definitely in a season of transition. And so, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for all the work you've already done through the podcast. What other parts of bio you want to add to the conversation that will be helpful for all the listeners?
I think that really covers it. Like, I'm from Texas. I've been in Austin since I think 2016, and since 2022, I've been pastoring here at St. Mark in North Austin, and love Jesus and love hugging trees, I guess, is another part of who I am. And I'm happy to be here.
We will get back to hugging trees. I'm very excited to learn more about that. But also with us on the pod is Rudy Logan. Rudy, I know, again, it's been a minute since we've done a podcast episode, so you want to either reintroduce yourself or just give a bit bio of who you are as well.
Sure. Hello again, everyone. Name is Rudy Logan. I'm coming from Silver Spring, Maryland, in the Washington, D.C. metro area, where I was working with the Episcopal Church, supporting its platform for equity and justice in the area. I just recently moved to Austin in August and joined the 787 Collective this past October, actually. And it's been a fun ride. It's been really interesting to learn about the different young adult ministry initiatives that are going on and how people are thinking about wholeness, belonging, transformation, etc. So glad to be here.
We are thrilled that you are here as well. So, okay, Ashley, just walk us through a little bit here. Again, transitions, right? You graduated from seminary. You're figuring out what's next for you, right? Like, do you go this pursuing a pastoral role? Like, talk to us a little bit about that transition from graduating seminary and then what's gotten you to where you are today.
Yeah, I guess when I was in my last semester of seminary, I started talking to my district here in Austin about appointments after seminary. And I was kind of contemplating doing a CPE, a clinical pastoral education residency. I had done a unit here in seminary in San Antonio, And so I was contemplating doing a residency, and then at the same time was hearing about an appointment at a small church in North Austin, and just ended up being appointed here and feeling really good about that call. I started pastoring there in June of 22. The church has been struggling for years and was kind of on a path toward closing. And so I'm actually here while the church is about to close at the end of this June. And then I'll be moving on and transitioning back to a CPE residency, and going to plant myself there for a year and then see what the Lord does through that and see where I'm feeling called to after that.
Actually, I'm curious, like, what have you learned throughout this process about this congregation that you served at as it nears its close? What are some key insights you've gathered from this experience?
Yeah, I think I have learned so much about the kind of church that I feel that I think the Lord is calling us to be, as far as a church that's really hands-on in service of and compassion and justice ministries. That's something that this church has done really well at, and been really open to leading my leadership of this church into, doing more of that. Like, we had a cold weather shelter this past winter season, and that just really drew in so many of our non-church neighbors and other people in the city. And I just got to gain an understanding that people really are moved by, I think, people of faith doing the work that Christ called us to do. And I'd love to see more of that in the church overall.
I love that. Talk to us a little bit about what you found when you entered the role of pastor beyond Sunday, like comparing Sunday morning to the non-Sunday morning work.
Yeah, Sunday morning has felt, I think, being in this congregation specifically, that's an older, more traditional congregation in a sense than I was used to. It's been nurturing the traditions and the community that's been here for so long, but then during the week kind of felt like, well, how am I going to just minister with the larger community? And that's been through the food pantry, through Seekers, and through Bible study, Wednesday night, like dinner church kind of thing. And I felt like I've had more creative liberty throughout the week. Gotten to do some creative work on a Sunday morning, but mostly it's been the things outside of Sunday morning.
That's wonderful. Phil provided a little bit of context for me prior to this meeting about the changing demographics of the neighborhood that the church is currently located in. Could you say a bit more about how you and the congregation dealt with that reality?
Yeah, like if you look at pictures from this campus, from when the buildings were first built in like the 70s, when additional buildings were built in the 70s and 80s, there was just a lot of property out here. And now, where there was like big vacant property, there's now a whole Chinatown center with a large Asian population right behind our campus. We share a fence with Chinatown. We share a fence with a largely Hispanic community apartment complex. I'd say that. And then we also share a fence with Walnut Creek Elementary, which is a Title I school with, they have a lot of different languages spoken and different populations represented. So, so that's been part of the change in demographics. And I think it's been hard for the congregation to know how to meet the needs of the growing diversity. And even myself as pastor have felt kind of at a loss of how to really incorporate the population around the church. But I'd say through our justice and compassion ministries, we've really been able to meet people in a different way. Like, I would have loved to see a Sunday morning service that was, very diverse and multiple languages and things like that. But it really has been in our food pantry and shelter and other ministries like that, where we've gotten to see the greater representation of this community present, and gotten to build relationships there. Yeah.
Was there kind of a chicken and egg here thing? Did Seekers emerge out of that, or was Seekers more of that emerged and then it also kind of brought in the Justice and Compassion ministry?
I think it was both. Like, the church has been well known for the food pantry and being part of Interfaith Hospitality Network, which was shelter for immigrant families and stuff. But as the years passed, the congregation didn't grow, and so those ministries kind of declined. And so then Seekers emerged when I got here because of my heart for that. And through the energy of Seekers, like several of the people in Seekers helped do the cold weather shelter and expand some of the ministries, and even shelter for a homeless family. That's actually how our first shelter started, was at a Seekers gathering. We kind of talked about what more could we do with our neighbors that are, living on the street and things like that. And people were willing to show up overnight and do that. And so more ministries of compassion grew from that too.
We keep flirting with it, but okay, tell us what Seekers is. Tell us how it burned.
So Seekers, it was just being in this community as pastor. I saw the demographics of my church are mostly an older population, and we're surrounded by a lot of young adults and young adults that were really had a heart for serving. And so Seekers was an idea of a way to meet the spiritual needs of our neighbors without forcing a Christian, you must come to our Christian worship service on Sunday and do everything like we do. And so Seekers is a gathering of young adults here on the church campus where it's focused on the concept of love. And so that's our central value and theme that we discuss. And the hope was that it would be a gathering for people that desire a spiritual space, but not in a traditional church setting. And we've been meeting at least once a month for the last almost 2 years, I guess. Yeah.
I love to hear that because I've been a part of some conversations where sometimes this yearning, right, this desire to evangelize can sometimes obscure like the more pressing material needs. So I really appreciate that you and your congregation were able to hold that balance and meet the community where they are and not approach them from a kind of transactional sense. So I applaud you. I'm also interested in hearing more about, what your congregation has taught you in terms of intergenerational ministry, right? These dynamics between the young and the old. Could you say more about that?
Yeah. That was definitely part of my campaign, so to speak. My vision for Seekers was that it would be a bridge between the older, traditional church and then like the younger people. I think what I've seen is that there is such a longing for that kind of intergenerational connection. We've had like game nights that were in collaboration with some young adult neighbors. And so it was like the church community and then our neighbors and also some little kids that would come. And those nights just felt like it was a family reunion, and so healing, and just felt like church. Like it didn't feel like a secular game night. It was just like a church ministry. And that was in collaboration with our neighbors. Yeah, I think that longing is something that really stands out to me, that we do need each other and need an intergenerational support network and loving, authentic conversations with one another and sharing meals together. And we even had a camp out, which was this last fall, which was a church plus Seekers camp out. And that was really special to see, just like an intergenerational group around the bonfire. We didn't know there was a fire ban, but we did get away with a bonfire the first night. And
oops.
Yeah, and it was just really, I think there's a deep hunger for that kind of connection across all ages, and also so many people with broken relationships with family and stuff, it's neat to see the church be a space for that kind of reforming of family, in the church.
One of the things I loved from the stories you told me over, again, 2 years, which where does time go? You just kind of articulated, right? That there was no forcing, the focus was always on love. And right, like, so you created this space that was hospitable and welcoming to people of a variety of faith expressions and not even sure what their faith expression was, right? But created a space that was invitational to them, and did that all while not like sacrificing or giving up your call as a United Methodist pastor, and as not sacrificing like or feeling like you couldn't express your love for Jesus, as you say. I love that you say that all the time. Like, I love Jesus, talk to us a little bit about that. Like, what was that like, being true to yourself and honest about your own faith in a way that didn't feel like it was isolating or excluding others?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think I would say it took some time for me to get there, because at first I kind of wanted to be, I don't know, there was a bit of not wanting to be overtly like in your face, I love Jesus. And honestly, one of the things that helped me was I got to meet Shane Claiborne and have a really awesome meeting with him, and talked about seekers, and asked about that kind of, how do you stand firm in who you are as a Christ follower, but also inclusive of others. And he just really pointed out that it is kind of like clear is kind. Like, it is good to be clear on where you stand, and that's almost more trustworthy, I guess, and authentic to just be true, while also collaborating with others. And yeah, so I think like sometimes people, knowing that I'm the pastor of this church, people would come to me and ask me questions that were more focused on Christ or like Christian topics. And I felt really comfortable in being authentic in that, but also having a space where the focus is love, and that being such a central tenet of the faith. It didn't feel like I had to compromise authenticity, because I could talk about love, from my heart. And yeah, so I think that really helped, is like having something that was centered on that, versus like just talking about whatever. I mean, other topics do come up, but when that's like the central focus, and it just made it easy for that authenticity to happen.
And Ashley, what did you learn about yourself
dealing
with this challenge of trying to remain rooted in who you are as a pastor, as a person, as a follower of Jesus, right? And then these different dynamics, right? This tension that exists at times. Like, what did you learn about yourself, like in light of Shane Claiborne's, advice to you and your experience wading through this?
Yeah, that's a great question, because even back when Martha Lynn was here, I would talk to her about that too. Like, I would try to lead kind of general meditations and things like that, and express that if I'm not really overtly leading in a Christ-focused manner, it doesn't feel true to me, and that's not where my giftings are. And I think I tried that and tried to be that kind of leader, where it's just more like, I don't know, where it's less focused on Christ, and that wasn't me, and I learned that. But I also learned that, and Seekers still kind of challenges me, because it's not overtly Christ. It does challenge me, because I want it to be more Christ focused. So that's something I've learned about myself, is that my gifts really thrive in a setting where I can really talk about Christ and lead in that kind of way. But like I said, having something that's focused on love, that's something where I can see that is Christ. And so leading others in the act of love, or, through, ministries of service, like that feels very true to myself, without having to be preaching Christ. Like, it's preaching Christ by doing those acts of love. And naturally the Spirit like moves in that. And so that's something I've learned, is like, if I can either be leading in an overtly Christ-centered way, or just around love, that's true to me, and that's where I want to keep leading.
That's beautifully said. Will you share with us a little bit about the leadership that how you grew as a leader, specifically recognizing that you probably had to lead one very specific way with the congregation, the traditional congregation that you led, versus your leadership that emerged leading seekers, and again, knowing a little of the background. You did a good job of entrusting others with leadership in the midst of that as well. So can you just share a little bit about like having to flex your different leadership skills in the midst of that work?
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely interesting. I think something that I did was in the conference, I guess, in the Rio, Texas conference, there was a group that was about kind of discerning ministry beyond the walls of the church, and in that group, I got to realize that part of discerning how the Lord's asking me to lead is like, for me, is what is bringing joy, and that's something that helps me discern, like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing in my leadership, and what I'm supposed to be taking on. And so, yeah, that's been helpful for me in guiding my leadership. And then, realizing that some things I had to do because I had to do, like, I didn't love maintaining all of some of the traditions of the church and things like that. But as a leader, discovering that sometimes is part of it while you're trying to nurture one thing and bringing in something new. You do have to sometimes do things that don't really spark joy. Um, I got to, I think, in maintaining those things that I didn't necessarily love, it kind of built trust with people, and allowed for other new things to come from that too. And I would say, yeah, definitely reaching out to some other people who came alongside as co-leaders, both in the church and in Seekers. Like, that was a big part of it, like finding those people who really caught the vision that I had for Seekers, and as like a bridge and all of that. Like, that was cool to connect with those people and kind of lean on them, like, hey, this is my heart for this, and I'd love it to be our heart together. And I did see a few leaders emerge from that, and that was also great for me to be able to feel like I have solid partnership in the work.
And Ashley, you mentioned holding tradition, and I may butcher this proverb, but there's this saying about the old kind of having to die in order for the new to be born. But it seems as though that wasn't the case in your context. So, what were some kind of key ingredients that you identified in order to hold together, the old and the new?
I mean, I would definitely say prayer is a key ingredient, like constant prayer, and discerning through prayer, like what needs to go, what really is something that needs to be laid to rest for something new, and then what things can you kind of deal with, I guess. I don't know, really listening to what people were saying is important to them, like definitely like a discerning listening of what are people saying that they're longing for, that they wish they had, in community. And through those listening moments, it was like, okay, something that really needs to be here is like an open community that's not forcing religion, but that provides a space for friendship. Like that was one of the things that came up a lot. Yeah, did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, transitions, right? Faith transitions. Here we are. You mentioned that the congregation is looking at it. It's probably going to have to close its doors, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a transition, clearly. You also are about to embark on a whole new experience with CPE and a year of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you mentioned either. It happens to be in New York, right?
It happens to be in New York City.
New York City. So that's a bit of a transition.
Yeah.
One, that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Right? That's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Talk to us just how you're doing. Like you've got all these transitions that are happening in your life. I'm sure there's some grief that's associated with it. I bet there's some excitement that's going with it too, right? The brilliance and complexities of what it means to be human is that we hold all these emotions together at the same time. Hey, how you doing, Ashley?
Yeah. Thanks, Phil. I'm doing okay. I would say that it was really painful to be part of like the meetings about the church closing, and to get to the point of saying, yeah, I mean, this is happening and this seems like it needs to happen. Because as much as the church wanted to grow, there was still that inability to really grow in the way that it needed to be a thriving congregation. And so there's been a ton of grief, and it's felt like it's been hard to look forward to what's next, because there's just a lot of hard feelings here, and my congregation struggling. But it's been almost 3 months now that the church has known it's closing, and that I've been working with that. And so I'm feeling a little bit of a turn toward what's next. And part of my healing from grief and just all the personal transitions I've been through as well has been writing. Like, that's been huge for me, through journaling and just spending a lot of time, writing. I also published my first post on my Substack, which was very healing for me because it was about grief, and something about publishing that just felt like I'm moving that out of me and into a place of possibly reaching others to help others too. And so I think I want to continue that. And I have really
do the shameless plug here. Come on, what's the Substack?
Ashley Diane.
Okay, all right. We'll link to that in the old show notes.
Cool. Yay. I think it's like ashleydiane.substack.com. And I have just a great support network of dear friends and chosen family and whatnot that have just really been there for me, and just reminded me that I'm not alone. And getting to visit friends over the holiday was really nice. I took my RV up on a road trip and just got to do a little tour of my friends that are like family. And and just being support. Like, I have a great community of clergy colleagues here also that have been supportive. So just reaching out and writing. That's really been it. And being outside.
Do you feel like helping the church through this journey of death has prepared you in a new way for CPE as well?
Yeah, I think my own grief and then the grief of this community. I think it's just kind of humbled me in a way that's like just more aware of how much grief is happening, a lot, like all around us in multiple ways. And I do think going to do CPE, it'll be a really good timing for me for that, and just having like a tender heart there in that way. So yeah.
Sorry, we should clarify for those who don't. What's CPE stand for?
Clinical Pastoral Education, and it's
there we go.
Yeah, and it's basically you're working as a chaplain while also being trained in ministry and pastoral formation. So
I have another question on a lighter note. Ashley, are you prepared for this New York weather? Being from Texas, having worked in Texas, studied in Texas, are you ready?
Appreciate that question so much. I feel very seen. No, I don't feel like I'm ready. Like, I'm from South Texas. I was born in South Texas and definitely love the heat. And I have one coat, and I thought I was like all set. It's a wool coat that someone gave me this past month. And I took it up north to visit my friend in Ohio, and her brother, who lives like in New York, was like, not at all. That coat is not it. You need like, rain-proof, snow-proof. So I still need a coat.
I've lived in New York, and I love this weather I have now here in Texas year round.
Yeah.
So I will say bundle up. I remember the first time I visited New York, and I was like in a Five Guys restaurant, and one of the workers there looked at me and was like, "Yeah, you're not from here, are you?" Just tell I was like shivering cold. So
Seen.
Layer up.
I feel seen.
Yes, that'll be me.
We'll also have to connect you with one of our former podcast people, Chris Palmer. He's at Fifth Avenue Press up there. I don't know. Do you know Chris?
Cool.
I don't know that you've met Chris, but he's part of the 787 Collective as well. He was one of our previous episodes. they're doing some cool ministry stuff there. So we'll definitely have to make a connection there as well.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit more about New York, right? Like that's a big transition. You started to talk a little bit about the excitement part, but what are you most excited about in this big move?
Yeah, I honestly, I love New York City. I'm super excited about going to see more musicals and
Do you
being.
already have a list? What's on the list? What are your top 3 that you can't wait to see?
Well, I want to see Hamilton again. I don't know if Cats is ever coming back. I really want to see Cats.
Fair enough.
And probably like Aladdin. Those are like on my top. Yeah, right now.
That's awesome.
Hamilton was life-changing when I saw it in October. And I'm also just really excited to be in a new place and to focus on my writing. Like that's something that is like a big goal for me this year. Just to write more and publish more. So I'm excited about that.
It's fantastic.
What excites you about writing? Like to dive a little bit deeper into that.
I think being in a new place, like being a pastor, I feel like a lot of my writing was like my personal devotions and then like devotions for the church and sermons. And, it hasn't been until recently that I've started prioritizing writing just for myself and what I want to write. And so I do feel like stepping away from the from congregational ministry for a little bit can allow me to prioritize that more. And yeah, I just feel like there's a lot in me that wants to be written that I haven't yet written. And so I've kind of dabbled in it, and I'm excited to really prioritize that. And that was like the biggest reason why I wanted to move to New York. One of my dear friends was like, "You don't need to move to New York to write." I'm like, well,
that seems fairly drastic. Yeah.
And it's a city of like inspiration and writers and creativity. And so I think just like the collective energy of creativity will be inspiring for me. And so I'm excited about that piece. And being
Absolutely.
in CPE, like when I did CPE the first time, I was writing a lot more. Like something about that opened me up a lot. And so, yeah, I think that'll be also correlated to my writing.
It's wonderful. I will say there's something about New York. Having lived there for undergrad, there's just like something in the air that like brings out the best in your creativity. So
yeah,
I look forward to reading your writings and like just
Thank
wish
you
you all the best.
I think it's the rats. The rats are the ones
Oh, yeah, I think so.
They foster a lot of creativity.
Yeah. I once saw a rat carrying a cheese pizza like in the subway. Those rats are like no other.
You have to write about that.
That's amazing.
I should. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be the next Pixar movie, right? The next Ratatouille will be the pizza instead of the... Yeah.
Watch out, Ratatouille. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I know Rudy's asked a couple of like the learning questions, but maybe just for other young adults who are really experiencing a lot of transition, and maybe whether it's career transitions, life transitions, combination of the both, just like you, what's some advice, or what would you offer to other young adults who are finding themselves in a similar position?
Yeah, I would say having patience and grace with myself has been something I've learned. Like I kind of wanted to just be like, I'm okay with this, and and this is happening. And I've just learned that having some patience to say like transitions, even if it's something exciting like moving to New York, can still be really painful. Like it's a grieving of the community I have here and my friendships and connections, and so yeah, I think having patience with yourself, allowing yourself to feel everything, knowing that it's all part of it, and also really trusting in the Lord, like that God is here in the midst of it all, and guiding, and finding like spiritual practices have been really valuable for me. Like for me, it's getting outside and sitting where I can just like feel nature all around me and pray or read the Bible or journal. Like that feels like a meeting with God, like a hangout with God, that has been really good for me in this time of transition. So, and also reaching out to others, like sharing your experience with others, not trying to do it completely alone. whether that is through writing and sharing that, or like making music or talking to friends. Like those kind of things have been really helpful for me in the transition.
That's good stuff. You mentioned your Substack. Are there other ways people can follow things you're doing, or is the Substack the best place to find you?
Instagram?
Totally. Hey, why not, right?
Yeah, and I have like 3 posts. I really want to get better. I want to get better at connecting with people on other platforms. So I would say Instagram and Substack are the 2 ways.
Perfect. Again, we will link those in the old show notes there.
Awesome.
Well, again, thank you for all you've done for 787 for the previous years. We look forward to continuing to be a part of your ongoing ministry, whatever that looks like, both in CPE for this next year, but also I'm sure it'll continue beyond that as well. And we'll look forward to following that and following you on Substack and your writings. I want to know. You mentioned nature a little bit here, but maybe this will be the good closing.
Yeah.
What's the tree you're hugging? Have you ever found a friend in a tree? I mean that 100% seriously. Like
100%, yes.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It honestly started, I think I've always loved trees, but in the like heart of the pandemic, when I didn't have anyone to really hug, I was on a walk with my bestie James from the seminary, and
also a 787, also previous podcast member. Absolutely.
Yes. And I don't know, I hugged like a big, like human-sized tree and was like, I literally feel like I am hugging a person, like something, I mean, it's a living being. And hugging that tree was just like, this feels really good. And then I started hugging trees out of like necessity, and then continued that. Like anytime a lot of times when I'm walking, I'll just like touch a tree or hug a tree. I've even led seekers on a tree hugging walk, which was really fun.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a really connecting practice. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to you getting to New York City and one of your Instagram posts being the tree that you regularly hug. Like that's what we're going to be looking for.
Okay.
This is Ashley's hugging tree.
Coming soon.
I love that. I mean, for me, it just reminds me of how like inextricably linked the dignity of humanity and the land are. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Amen to that. Which, again, you don't think of New York City being a place where that's natural, right? Because it's just a land of concrete jungle, basically. But I will say the last time I was there, we spent a lot of time in Central Park, and that's kind of a little bit cliche, but like it's not. It's incredibly beautiful, you know? So there is beautiful nature even in the midst of the biggest of cities.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Ashley, thank you. Rudy, always thank you as well. We look forward to following your continuing work, Ashley, and more than anything, we just celebrate you for your ongoing faithfulness in the midst of all of the transition, because again, I know it's hard. So
thank you.
We continue to journey with you and support you and love you in the midst of that journey. So blessings to you and all that's coming forward for you.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, Phil, and to the 787 Collective for all the support that I've received over the last couple of years. You know, it's meant the world, and it's been really cool to work with you guys. And I hope that we always stay connected in some way.
Indeed, we will. Amen to that. Go in peace, friends.
You too.
Right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Collective Voice, the premier podcast of the 787 Collective. For more information, visit us at 787collective.org or find us on the social medias at 787 Collective. And if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate us, and share a review of us. For when you do, you are tricking the algorithm for the common good.